Welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to helping business owners prepare for exit so you can maximize value and exit on your terms. This is the Exit Insights podcast presented by Succession Plus, and I'm Daryl Bates-Brownsword. Today, I'm talking to Alvin Narsey. Welcome, Alvin.
Thanks, Daryl. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, my pleasure. Alvin, hey, fellow Aussie, living on the other side of the planet, living your best life, as they say. Great to catch up. Look, how did you end up here? What are you doing in Germany? And let's start digging and figuring out why the listeners want to listen to you and learn from your great story.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. How did I end up in Germany? Great question. So basically, I was a business owner in Melbourne, Australia. I'm a pharmacist by profession, and I got into pharmacy businesses early on in my career, post-graduation. And basically, I bought and sold pharmacies for about 15 or 16 years, which was really, really good fun. And then the pandemic came. My wife is from Germany, and usually she is able to come and visit her parents here, every couple of months. Thankfully, with her work, she's able to do that. But, being in the most locked down state in Australia, that's Victoria, in Melbourne, Victoria, she couldn't come and see her parents. So we sort of made the decision, a lifestyle decision that, it was probably time to leave Australia because it was just really crazy. You couldn't leave your house for more than an hour at one time. You couldn't move beyond a 5-kilometer radius. So thankfully, I always had set up my businesses that they were really easy to sell. So I always had the exit in mind, and I'm sure we'll get to that later on. So once we made that decision that, it was time for her, she was going to quit her job, I was going to easily sell my pharmacy. Being at the height of the pandemic, pharmacy were really, really good businesses, still are. So we sold the shop. She quit her job. We put our things into storage, rented out the house, sold the cars, and we moved to Germany. And here we are, 7 months in.
7 months and still exciting. And you're about to, what is it? No, you're in German summer. So yes. It's good. And Oktoberfest will be coming up and all those good things of living in a new place and everything's for the first time.
It's really exciting. And the great thing, as you know, the great thing about Europe is you can use it as a really good base to travel. And, you could travel freely from when we moved here. I think Australia's just opened up now, which is good also. But being in Europe, especially in Germany, is such a great base to just zip around anywhere. It's fantastic.
There is so many wonderful places to see in such a short distance relative for an Australian.
Yes, exactly.
Brilliant. So, Alvin, it sounds too good to be true. It sounds like you had the fairy tale, following all of Gerber's principles, have the business working for you, working on the business. It sounds like you did it more than once, buy and sell pharmacies.
Yes.
Like most business owners, especially with retail, they struggle to sell one business. They'll build it up, they'll earn their living from it throughout their lifetime, and then struggle with how to hand it on. What did you do different? How the heck did you build one? And I assume, and maybe you can confirm that every time you bought one and you built it up and sold it for more than you made a margin, I imagine, on the
Absolutely.
business. So how the heck did you get in? What did you do?
All right. So I first got into business when I was 27 years old. I graduated, I went overseas like most people do, I come back and decided it's time to really rock and roll. So I managed to hustle my way into a pharmacy partnership with a couple of older gentlemen, and there I was running my business. And then I realized I know nothing about running businesses because, I was taught at school to be a scientist, a pharmacist. And because I was young, I was 27 years old, I was pretty impatient. Like I really wanted to get rocking and rolling. So I sought assistance with a business coach. And my very first business coach, Casey Golan, who also from Adelaide, I was so keen to learn, so eager to grow my business that I just did exactly what he says and exactly what he said. So one of the first things that we did was to work on our mission, vision, values, but also he introduced that concept to me, and I hadn't read the E-Myth at that time, but the concept of setting up our business so one, it runs without us, and two, setting it up so we can sell it at any time. And that was a really interesting concept for me because, I just got into business. I wasn't going to sell it. But, Casey was pretty convincing in showing me what would happen if we started to set up the business without me running the business on a daily basis, because I really love travel and adventure. It's one of my biggest values, which I had no idea about values either. Casey helped me with that. And he made me realize this, what do you really want out of your business? Do you want a job? Do you just want to work in it? Or is it something that's going to provide for your life? So that was one thing that he helped me with. And then, so from there, it was just working backwards. And we put processes and systems in place. And we knew that I wanted to work on the business, not in it. And what does that look like? Working backwards and eventually getting all the shops ready for sale, which is essentially making sure that we have a really high focus on maintaining profitability and growing net profit in the business, and working backwards from there.
Okay. So working on the business, I'm just, where my mind's going is in some industries, it requires someone with a certain profession to be able to own that business.
Yes.
And then all the things that you were just talking about were effectively the owner, not necessarily working in the business. So I'm wondering if that is a constraint on resources effectively.
Yeah, sure thing. It is in the beginning. So in the beginning, I was working in the business and on the business. And in the business that I was owning, in the pharmacy-based business, you need to be a pharmacist to own it. So, in the beginning, I was doing everything and working on the business. And once the business grew a little bit, I was able to sort of remove myself one day at a time out of the business. So that involved, yes, hiring a pharmacist to be a pharmacist on the floor. Well, I took that extra day, not to party, but to actually, take some hours out of the day to work on the business. So yes, there is that growing pains, I suppose, that you probably all need to go through. We all need to go through, because you're right. It's very hard to just jump away, because who's gonna do everything in the business initially? Absolutely.
And I think you nailed it earlier, and you said, look, when I went to uni, they taught me how to be a scientist.
Yes.
They taught me how to run a business. So one of the bits of feedback I get from business owners regularly is Daryl, yeah, you're telling me I need to get out of the business, I need to work on the business and not in the business. And what the hell does that mean? Like, if I'm working on the business, what am I actually doing? Because I know how to work in the business, and I'm the best at whatever it is in my business. I know how to do it. I'm the best pharmacist, and therefore I can answer any questions. And actually, one of my clients said to me, I like being needed. Yeah,
yes.
I've got all the answers to all the questions. I'm very helpful, and it's all very helpful. And I said, yeah, but the more the business needs you, the less it's worth, and the more dependent it is, and it's not good. So when you're working on the business, what were you doing?
Yeah, sure thing. So this is a new concept for me, right? So thankfully, with my business coach and mentors I had at the time, so really what I was looking at was how we would work on improving profitability. So what strategies we would use to do that. And if with that being one of the focuses, we would sort of work backwards. Okay, well, you need to start, ensuring that the team are trained up. How do we organize, your team are working and driving profitability in the business? What strategies are we going to be looking at for marketing? What supply negotiations can we, walk into or talk into? Those were some of the major things that I was struggling to do while I was working in the business. So it's really taking that view back and, looking at that big picture stuff. And eventually it was then also looking at how I could leverage myself out of the business. So, doing an org chart, understanding everyone's roles, and then working backwards and make sure we got somebody to do those roles, to fill in those roles.
Yeah. So yeah, working backwards. So profitability, it's always the focus. We've got to get, increased profitability. But profitability is just simply an outcome of everything else you've done.
Right.
So how do I sell more? How do I reduce my costs? Are the two primary areas. And one of the things one of my colleagues says to me all the time, he says, Daryl, you don't grow a business by cutting costs. Oh yeah, that's merit on that. You need to manage costs. But
yes.
Just cutting costs, will give you a quick hit on your profitability, but it's not necessarily sustainable.
No.
So as a retailer, how did you focus on profit? So
absolutely. So I think one of the
costs and rental.
Like you said, costs are important, and it's a short fix. But one of the main things that we do was to constantly work on our margins. So that in the retail sense, and I guess across all businesses, is sort of understanding what are we selling our products for and what margin are we making? And also looking at ways that we can increase that margin and also providing value to the client or customer as well. So one of the first steps we did was start to increase prices in an intelligent manner. So, if you increase, especially in the retail game, if you increase prices all across the board, you're going to drive your customers away, especially in a market where there's a lot of discounting and a lot of price awareness. So, it's about being smart and tactical in how you raise your prices. The other thing that we were working on is your average dollar sale or average sale per client. Every business has a metric on that. And, we really worked towards how we could move the needle on increasing that average basket size or sale per client. And the good thing about that is you only need a couple of percentage increase to really, really move it forward, because as you do more transactions, a small percentage increase sort of banks into profit really without really much extra expense.
Okay. So before we go too much further, I can imagine listeners going, yeah, well, that's okay. You run a pharmacy. I'm a retailer. I'm not running a pharmacy. That doesn't apply to me. Is there any difference in what you are doing from a business perspective by applying it to a pharmacy or any other retailer?
I don't think so, no, because these are constant metrics. I mean, we, as a business, we sell something to a client or customer, and there's margin involved with that. So you can raise your margins intelligently whilst providing value to the client. So that's sorted, doesn't matter what industry you're in. I think that's basic business.
Yep.
The other thing is also is your average client transaction, average sale per customer, whatever metric it is, it's very similar across the board. We can all sell more to our clients without a significant increase in expense. And it's just sort of understanding how we package up our products, our services, and what extra value we can provide to our clients as well. So really it's just basic business fundamentals.
Yeah. So it's the classic, Happy Meal, or,
yes,
do I bundle it up, or do you want fries with that scenario? While you're here picking up some paracetamol, do you need vitamin C as well? Or
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the things is understanding your client/customer journey, and not only for retail, but any business really, and having a look at what other services, products around that journey that your client or customer would need really, and just introducing that and adding that on and providing value, I think is often missed.
What are the next door products is how I refer to it. Okay.
Yes, well said. Yeah.
Yeah, and understanding the customer journey, because I know in retail, it's, the people tell me, how do I get that balance right? Because I don't want to be overly all over the customer, because they're just browsing, killing time, whatever it is they're doing. But at the same time, I want them to feel special. I want to engage with them. I want them to let them know that I've seen them there and said hi, and and changing the question from "can I help you," which is just no, just looking, to
yes,
what brings you in here today? Exactly.
Engaging in the conversation.
Yeah.
Really, really important. I think, quite often in retail anyway, we can go straight for the kill and often get shot down, like you said, with a no, I'm just browsing or looking. But, it's about employing in retail anyway, some open body language. Hi, how are you? Getting an understanding for what the customer's in for, and moving on from there rather than just going straight in. But especially in retail, and I would argue in all businesses, the lifetime value of the customer or the client is super important, because we can take them on a journey and we can be on their journey together. And if they trust us and if they've bought from us before, we can continue to provide value to them and service them. And it can be a win-win situation for both the client/customer and us, the business owner.
Yeah. Remove the friction, demonstrate that you're adding value, make it easier to buy from you, the right sort of sensitivity but value added advice at the right time is all part of it.
Yeah.
And as you say, if they're bought from you once, there's a 50% chance they come back. If they're bought from you twice, it goes up to 75%, I think. Right up to the point, once they're bought from you 4 times, there's a 95% chance they're coming back.
Exactly. And I'm sure there's a stat floating around. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's definitely harder to acquire a new customer than it is to look after your existing customers, so.
Yeah. And why do clients leave a service provider? The biggest factor from the research I've read is that they feel that we're ambivalent towards them. And I
Yeah.
see that as a retailer when you walk into a shop and you just get ignored, or you feel like you get ignored. And then the others that are trying too hard and they say hi and it just feels so insincere. So it's not easy.
It's not easy. And you're right. It is about finding that balance, especially in customer service land, especially in retail land as well. Yeah.
So what about some of the other pressures of opening all hours and being available 24/7? How did you handle that, Chestnut?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, in Australia anyway, the retail landscape is such, unlike Germany, where you're pretty much you are trading 7 days a week. And, at the time, being in the pharmacy-based business, we're a primary healthcare provider. So we were open 7 days a week, and also, pretty much open till late as well. How do we get around that? Well, we just need to make sure we staff it well. We understand we're playing in this retail landscape. All our competition are doing the same. And for us to provide value to our clients and patients, as it were, we just had to be open. So you just hire staff. That's what we had to do. We had to make sure that we were always constantly looking for really, really good staff to make sure that we could put them in our shops.
Okay, so we've got a staffing issue. They're fundamentally retailers, except for the people who have to be pharmacists to do
Yes.
bits and pieces. And you're focusing on client engagement and client loyalty to make sure they come back. Did you do any specific training for staff your way of doing things? What did
all the time. I think this is a big mistake that a lot of business owners make, and definitely retailers make, and especially small business high street retail shop owners. I think we're really scared to invest in our staff because we fail to see the return it provides. There's conceptually, when I work with clients as well, and I was in the same boat initially, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to, the shop's open till 7 p.m. I'm going to have to get my team at 7:30. I'm going to have to provide pizza and Coca-Cola. It's going to cost me money. And in Australia, we have to pay our employees to stay back because, that's the law. So once we got through all that, training became a regular occurrence. And yes, it was always rotating customer service training. We also had product training as well. And between those two, we were constantly cycling the training. And of course, a general staff meeting as what's really important in a retail store, because you've got part-timers, full-timers, casuals, everyone at different hours. And, having a really structured meeting at least once a month is a good way to communicate to your whole team what's happening in the business. So yes, it had to be done all the time.
Yeah, and I take it the training that you were applying was a minimal training on product knowledge, and I imagine there was some product knowledge there, but it was more to do with the customer relationship side of things.
Absolutely. So in my businesses anyway, we used a lot of NLP, which is just basic neuro-linguistic programming, which is just basic customer service skills, how to build rapport, how to talk to your customers, how to stand, how to match and mirror, make eye contact, and that kind of thing. So that certainly customer service was one part of it, a big part of it. And also, like you said, the product knowledge was another part of it. But one of the skills that we had to teach was to take a step back. And when you're talking to your client or customer, was trying to really understand everything that's going on, so that you could provide a full solution. And that was always a challenging part, because you're relying on all sorts of traits from your team member. One, they've got product knowledge. Two, they've got really good listening skills, so they can provide the full service to the client. So there's so many moving parts that's dependent on the individual, that it requires constant work, and it's an ongoing thing. Training should be an ongoing thing, especially in a retail business.
Yeah, well, all businesses, right?
Yeah.
So, Alvin, you've mentioned that you've done this several times.
Yeah.
You've walked into a pharmacy without, revealing too much, of the financials, because I imagine they're sensitive to the new owners and what have you. But what sort of difference did it make? Yeah, you've taken on board with the coaching. You've had someone from the outside guiding and pointing you and stating the stuff that's obvious to them, but you can't see the wood for the trees for being stuck in it.
Yeah.
You've applied all the learning. You did, I think you said, did everything they just told me what to do. So
yep.
Thankfully, you got a good coach who knew what they were working on. What was the difference that you ended up making on these businesses you'd worked in?
Yeah.
And profit.
Yeah, absolutely. So quite often, within a couple of years, you could improve. We were improving the net profit by at least 10 to 15%, also being able to clean up the business, if you will. So quite often, these businesses were really well run, but there's a lot of a lot of bad processes that we needed to clear out and implement new processes as well. And implementing those processes would then also help drive our net profit up as well. Also making sure that these businesses had constant training of clients, of customers, and just a really good general cleanup. But 10 to 15% was usually our average. And in the pharmacy game, which is a net profit, a small increase in that can have a really, really big impact on the sale price, as you know.
Yeah, well, and and on the overall profitability and therefore cash available to owners.
Yes.
So you've done this a couple of times. I imagine you've scaled up, stepped up, you're comfortable with the journey.
Yes.
You've now moved to Germany. Are you doing the same thing in Germany? Are you running a pharmacy? What are you doing now?
Well, when I sold my last business in the pandemic last year, I was working with a coach at the time, and his name was Glenn, and he's like, well, what are you going to do there, Alvin? I was like, I'm not really sure. And he says, well, you should be a business coach because, you've learned so much, you've really implemented things. Why don't you do the same? And I sort of blew it off for a little bit. It took a couple of months off just to do nothing. Well, actually, we were packing the house really. And then we had a final dinner, and I thought, yeah, Glenn, I'm going to give this a go. So this is what I've done. Really, it's just now coming back and sort of giving value to other business owners, retailers specifically, because I speak their language really well. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working with clients all over the world, helping them improve their cash flow and profitability. And I focus on those two areas because I feel they are the foundations, profitability, as you know, and cash flow. And it's something that a lot of business owners make mistakes in and they don't sort of get right. So that's where I usually start my journey with my clients.
Okay. So primary focus retailers, applying everything you've learned, been there, done it. Did you say 5 times?
Yes, bought and sold 5 shops. Yep. 5 large businesses. Yep.
So pretty well perfected the process yourself.
Yep.
What you're talking about. Now you're doing that with other business owners.
Yeah.
So if you're now applying it to others, just as a sneak preview, what's the top tip you can give our listeners as the number one thing? And I guess it's the number one thing that you want them to take away from our conversation today. What's your top tip you can give them to I guess, for them to go, this guy knows his stuff. I need to be saying hi.
That's really good. Can I give you 3?
Yeah, go on. This right. Is the pricing and packaging piece, is it? Let me package 3 in together. Yeah, that's special price.
So basically, when I work with business owners, the first thing that we do is we work on the visibility of the numbers in their business. I think it's one of the key things that are missed, because once we start implementing what we need to implement, if we have no way of tracking, recording, understanding what's going on in our business, it makes it really difficult to know which way the needle is moving. So we do some simple things like, recording cash flow, forecasting, setting up some KPIs and setting up a KPI dashboard, all those things that business owners often overcomplicate. That's the first thing I work on. The next thing we do is look at the cash situation in their business and try and flush their bank account with cash. And that really involves a little bit of a cleanup of their back of house and just come up with some systems to, increase their basket size or average dollar sale per client. And the third piece is profit. We really start to look at profitability. A lot of business owners are really scared about raising their margins. And that's one of the key areas that we start to attack first, is to hold their hands so we're raising margins intelligently. And, really working towards how we can improve their overall bottom line or their net profit.
Okay. So get some visibility, get some see-through dashboard, information on what's currently going on.
Yes.
Then once you've got that visibility, start monitoring what's happening with the clients and cost per transaction and increasing, getting everyone to buy more.
Yes.
And I think you said, earlier, doing that by listening and asking questions before you're advising, rather than just assuming you know what they want.
Absolutely.
And then, then explore. Once you've got some trust and respect, it's no longer just coming in for a transaction. They're coming in because they know and trust you. That then enables you, authorizes you to start putting your prices up, because people are coming in because they get extra value rather than because you're the cheapest place around town.
Exactly right. Yeah, you can build the value into the pricing as well. And yeah, it just makes such a big difference.
Fantastic. Hey, thanks for sharing with us today, Alvin. You've clearly got some great experience and would be a good person to help improve that retail environment.
Right. Thanks, Daryl. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having me.